For your first lesson, Monday's lesson in week 4, you're going to need pencil, something to write on, so something to write with, something to write on, and your calculator. Homework, Module 4, Lesson 16. We're getting very near the end of Module 4, or 30 minutes of additional Imagine Math. Just make sure you're checking your individual tracker to make sure you're completing the correct assignments for the week to ensure you're earning points to the weekly incentives we are now putting in place. Today's lesson deals with population problems, inside ratios, and proportions. Today, you guys are going to use expressions and equations to solve complex multi-step percent problems involving populations. You know you have this when you score 80% or higher on today's quizzes involving multi-step complex population problems, and your standard is 7 RPA3, which deals with using proportional relationships to solve multi-step ratio and percent problems. I put this slide in for you guys just so you understand. Today's video, today's quizzes, today's lesson is going to be challenging, but what I expect is you guys persevere and you try your absolute hardest as you work through the lesson in the video and as you work through your quizzes. You may need to pause and rewind this a few times to go through this. You also may want to check out the Knowledge on the Go video if you need additional help, and that is linked as well under the Monday classwork announcement. With that said, let's get to the task at hand. In my efforts to make these videos for you guys a little bit shorter, I'm going to get rid of the daily reviews and jump just straight into the day's activities. So hopefully you guys like that. I will be putting in reviews more like full day lessons, but not every single day, once again to cut down video length. A school has 60% girls and 40% boys. If 20%, so we got 60% girls, let me annotate this, 40% boys. If 20% of the girls wear glasses and 40% of the boys wear glasses, what percent of all students wear glasses? So, our goal is to be able to answer this problem algebraically through the use of expressions and equations. But in order to do that, and like I said, today's going to be challenging, we have to make sure we understand the problem at hand. Let's say this bar represents the total number of students at the school. All right, regardless of if they wear glasses or not. This entire 100% represents all the students at this school. Now, 60% of that, which is a little bit more than half, about here, is the girls. So I'll just put a G in here for girls. And then over here, this remaining 40% is boys. And our goal here is to find 20% of this 60%, which is about this much down here. And then 40% of the boys, which I would say is about that much down here. And find out what percent that is out of the total amount. Now, follow me algebraically. I drew a picture so you guys have an understanding of what's happening visually here. We're going to let N represent the number of students in the school. So the total number of students. Now, the 60% of the girls can be represented by 6/10 N. 60% of N. N, remember, represents a total number of students. So if you take 60% of that, 60% of N, you'll get the number of girls. And remember, 6/10 is 60%. If you're thinking, where did the 0 go? And you're thinking it should look like this, the 0 doesn't matter, so I didn't write it. Now, 40% of boys. that will equal to 4/10 n, or you can write it like that. Does not matter. I'm just going to drop it and get rid of it. Now, those added together get 1n, which represents the total number of students, which is good. Now, what we need, it's not that straightforward. We need, if I go up here, 20% of that 60%. So what I'm going to do is I am going to multiply that 20% times the 60% of the total. When I do that, I get 12 hundredths n. I basically multiply the 2/10 times 6/10. It gave me 12 hundredths, and then that n is still there. It's kind of like you distribute it. Now, I'm going to do the same thing here. But over here it says 40% of the boys wear glasses. So I'm going to take 40% of the 40% n. That equals 16 hundredths n. So, what this means right now is 12% out of the total number of students wear glasses who are girls. Here, 16% of the total number of students wear glasses here, and this makes up the boys' percentage. Once again, just make sure we're clear. And if you're good, you can fast forward. If you're not, I'm going to repeat it, but you can always rewind the video as many times as you need and make sure you understand it. We have 60% of girls. N is the total. So if you just want to find the number of girls in the school, you would do 6/10 n, 60% of n. This is just a basic conversion from our percent to our decimal. You move the decimal 2 over to get the decimal to a percent. If you need the 0 here for it to make sense, by all means add that 0. Same thing here. This school is 40% boys. So it is 40% as a decimal times n. Now, I can't just add those together because only 20% of the girls are wearing glasses. So I needed to then multiply 20%, which once again, if you need the 0 to help you, you can put it in there. You need to find 20%, which is 20 hundredths, of that 60% of the total. Multiplying that gets 12 hundredths n. This one, 40% of the boys make up the school, but also 40% wear glasses. So that's why this number is the same. Okay, that just happened to be a coincidence. So you're going to take 40% of the amount that are boys, and that gets 16 hundredths n. Now, the question asks what percent of all students wear glasses. So we know this percent of girls wear glasses, and this percent of boys wear glasses. If we add that together, we get 28 hundredths n. Now, that 28 hundredths is equal to 20%. So 28% of students wear glasses. Remember, because this means, this value right here, this expression, means 28% of the total. So 20% of the total wear glasses. What makes this problem probably for you guys more difficult than other problems is we're not given the information here to figure out exactly how many people. That's why it's just asking what percent. Whatever the total number of students at this school is, whether it's, 2,000 or 300, 28% of that are glasses wearers. Okay? So, that's the first example. I have a second one after this. I would encourage you, if you're stuck, rewind, listen through it 2 or 3 times, and make sure you understand and comprehend. Now, we're going to look at this example. Make sure you always pause the video to write down the questions so you can go back to them when you're doing your quizzes. If you do not write this down, when you get to your quizzes, you don't have anything to look at. Same thing as in class, guys. You write things in your notebook, then you do your assignment with your notebook next to it. So write this stuff down. Also, research says if you write things down, you're more likely to understand and remember it. So there's reasonings for things. All right. The store's markup on a wholesale item is 50%. The store is currently having a sale, and the item sells for 20% off the retail price. What is percent of the profit made by the store? All right, what we have here is we're going to let X equal the original wholesale price of the item. What happened is that item was marked up 50%. So what you have is you have 1.5 or 1.50x. It was marked up by 50%. Remember, if we write this, that means you're taking half of the original price. This means a 50% markup, okay? Now, 50% markup means you increase 100% by 50. So you get 150%, which is 1.5. Now, then the store has a sale, and the item sells for 20% off the retail price. So we got to figure out a way to take 20% off of that. And now, just to be clear, this stands for the retail price, right? That's how much they're selling it for. Now, if we have this amount, we want to take away 20% of that resale price. So I am going to subtract away 20% of the retail price, like this. Okay? Follow me. Please make sure you're listening. I know this is challenging. These are one of the more challenging lessons in 7th grade curriculum. 50% markup of the wholesale price gets to the retail price, meaning how much do they sell items for? 50% markup gets 1.5 because you're adding 50% onto the 100%. That gets 150%, which has a decimal is 1.5. So they're multiplying the wholesale price of all their items by 1.5 to get their new price. Now, on a specific item, they sell it for 20% of the retail price. So I need to take the retail price, which is this 1.5x, 1.5x, and I need to subtract 20% of the retail price. Okay? Because I'm taking 20% of the retail price away. Now, to simplify this, I need to first multiply before I do any subtraction. And the 20 hundredths times 1 5/10, that gets a value of 3/10 x. Negative 3/10 x if you want to look at it that way. Now, you subtract those two, you're going to get 1 2/10 x. So what does that mean? That means the store still makes a 20% profit on a retail item that is on sale for 20% off the retail price. Why 20% profit? Because you are still multiplying the original wholesale price, which is X, by 1.2. That 0.2 is that extra 20% that is added on. If that number in front of X was less than 1, they would actually be losing money on that item, which some companies will put on such a sale to lose items. Like they would mark it up less than whole. So they lose money on that individual item in hopes you buy other items. Okay, that they make a lot of money on. Restaurants do that kind of often, but a lot of places can do that. But this is a 20% profit still, even with the 20% decline. All right, now, we are at our key points. The most important thing here is to read all problems carefully. You may need to read it through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 times. That is okay. Use your notes, just like in class. I do not want to see you guys like being confused, but you didn't write anything down. You didn't play through the video multiple times. I say this to you guys all the time in class. If you're confused, I'm okay with that as long as you worked your hardest. What's not acceptable is not putting forth full effort and that being the reason you're confused. So you're writing things down, you're watching the video multiple times, and then reach out for support as needed. Now, remember that the number one is the same as 100%. So if you have some kind of increase happening like we did with a markup, you add to the 100%. If you have a decrease, you need to subtract from the 100%. Use diagrams as needed and be flexible and reach out for support as needed. I know you'll probably need it with this, but if you don't and you knock out your quizzes and do well, that's very good. I know you gave a lot of effort. So with that said, the quizzes you're completing for Monday is called population problems. Use your notes and this video. You're going to need it. Make sure you're persevering. Remember, if you do not get it 80% the first time, you have 3 attempts. What some of you are doing is you are taking it one time, you're getting a very low percentage on easier ones than this, and you're not doing it a second or third time. That's unacceptable. You have 3 attempts. So if you do not get that 80% the first time, or even if you get 80%, you feel like you can do better, do it again. You have 3 attempts. Don't ever settle, okay? You can use a calculator and reach out for support as needed. And the last thing is remember office hours. If you need support and you feel like the phone is not going to be good enough, please come to office hours for that support. Go knock out that Quizizz, try your best, and persevere.